Ma mini minia Ben Insia, my friend Ben is as a Benjamin, no for short. Any komo wano energy policy aspect. Na anope yemisa say what is the current situation? At the end here, the power producers no are failing. Say wamubema the needed capacity. Uria, what we call good morning, as you saying?
Yeah, minia.
Avijapa.
I think I'm resigning home. As you see,
Kessben 92.9.
I mean, as a nurse cover me brain, no one be oh.
no great minia.
I see. But tell us what is happening really within the energy sector. A lot of areas, and Winneba, part of the central region, mostly in the greater Accra, and then Kumasi, Oko Western region, so indications no my same. So areas no be Brenano and Kaniano, I dare say in so yetudum no. For a lot of hours, Ghana for the one who is a doom sono asanso abba. And then so precisely na yentoaso ni nkomo.
Minia, Mr. Speaker, that's it. I'm for Kwanyai, so in here.
Kessben 92.9.
I think that the airport no any new. Abribiano, Mene, Mudin Koma, make a say, your problem in the power sector no, has been historical. And buying a buy, one share that infant and income who quite pa or befa so a solve problem the once and for all. I think most of the ministers are pointing more to the energy ministry, no mobile no model or monsa abeso finance minister Eden is also but pragmatic solutions, and that's a very realistic solution now. Ebe ma yen kodum so mu bi no bia enka wasem tie de so sa na say bia ya ban efiri so a ban so e de mo abeso so sa na no so efiri so e na bi efiri ne o hwa since 2017 even before 2017 most of the contracts we signed had problem in 2018 we signed contracts with people and also had problems and ama eka abeda energy sector no eka na meka no oka all the power sector service providers ka abumwa eka ni mina abumwa is almost about $2 billion. $2 billion in current CD dispensation no is about 22 or even 24 billion Ghana cedis, and mobilizing this revenue no is very, very difficult to come by. Inti eka na abeda mu no na most of these power sector service providers no catch that by say the one way and try come my either if I'm a producer I'll stop production or I'll reduce my production. If I'm a transporter, I'll stop the transportation of that thermal energy, and I say natural gas, I'll stop the transportation. And the moment a producer now able reducing the production of power, and as a transporter no be hold to the transportation of natural gas, it affects the distributor. The name no say no power IPPs no atoma grid co. Grid co so atoma ECG no swati because producers no have reduced their production, and as supply of natural gas no so must stop and as ma hold to the supply of natural gas until the power generated no is far less compared to our peak demand of about 3,500 megawatts. Them no many can say no you produce around 3,350 megawatts of power. Until the moment the supply of power is less than the demand, no, they are low shedding, but the pressure no bus work. I will say, yet so. Na ichi mo ubiaga traka. Ne anupa mino kase miya mukramita dum sumo ewa denta. I think the lies echo of around 12 or so and came back around 6 something anupa we are mino kase. Dum so ni umusana, but the unfortunate part is that kamuni beji se UPG the communication beba my schedule no be to me planning appropriately because we are not in normal times. You say aba nti upi na se nyama na obeto oto agu bibi na obeya why ansana afau by surprise, but ECG is yet to communicate. You say no statement beba say due to extended maintenance some 10 areas will be shut down, and as be very soon the production of electricity and the distribution of electricity to these areas. But I think that we need a broader timetable. I with my follow now at my boy ya share.
Very well, Fajame. Now, issues, what was so one? The suppliers of natural gas, WAMCO through the West African gas pipeline, stopping the supply of gas. One de bema IPPs, so that IPPs, so ebetimi ede a produce a generate the required a year megawatt of power. Here now the question I put is that a car here and a Ghana buying Ede Wamko in time past, are buying somewhere last year, getting to the last quarter of the year. By my yes, negotiations are underway. In fact, the ECG, MD, no, MITS, yes, I mean, there were other sources, I say, gas in the cry and supply, and now IPPs, Emma, one more production, no, eco from Krana, we can sustain as a country. And so far, no, $2 billion, hena buying etuya yet we are unable to resolve this particular debt situation.
Last year, buying etuya almost about $500 million edema some of these IBPs. But the problem is that the debt are in two folds. Kana energy sector, we have historical debt and recurrent debt. And the recurrent debt, are buying a model. And I say, sign some memorandum of understanding. You better kwanya you bit me the current or not a recurrent debt, and no model, no cash waterfall mechanism. But over the last publicly by PRC on the implementation of the cash waterfall mechanism now, PRC just is kind of ECG, on to me and allocate and as appropriate based on the right percentage or agree in the framework to the various power sector service providers. What could say, for example, I think currently I'm buying Ediomuka about $60 million or even more, between $60 million to $146 million. And government has continually assured them that Obituya. Then so assurance, Obujitum and time you do so, buying Bituya, now buying action train and I say because on ready so Bituya, either so Niska or on ready so Bituya. Then can use to cash waterfall mechanism so MPP recurrent expenditure na obi was okay. So say a cover for the name that I was a pre on ever quite for we are and also no cash waterfall mechanism no PRC Mukracha say a buying any so on the in this kind of bar. It's going to be to ECG account to manage ECG this kind of quite for. And as a Minister of Finance and Director of Fanquaya for Obia or supply energy, be it car power, be it scent, be it AXA, be it Asogli, and most of the transporters are WAPCO Kahono, or Mudina, more percentage also Muji through the cash waterfall mechanism, even BMX Crackham. So I see to ECG accounts one as a Minister of Finance accounts more. All this can acquire for Muslim and new debt are also coming up. But from old debt, at that time, a couple from a balloon and so by. And I think that most of these IPPs and power sector service providers now say or more armhold to or more operations and almost services to government and they can be do level or multimedia. Bearing in mind that buying a restructure most of the bonds, say 2025 in Obituya. They say almost so echo na omudi like they continue to believe in government or trust in government. Now also broke coming through 2024 are buying back 2025 are buying back says most of these restructured bonds almost can be come. And that is why I think that almost say almost say yes buying so one is gonna maya as supply electricity so that the economy become so most of them are producing. And even in terms of transportation, most of them have halted their transportation of the natural gas to various IPPs.
Yes, but you have the energy sector recovery levy. There are other levies. And talking about the historical debt and then the recurrent one. I don't know, crowd, is a new one. And then the arrangement, through the cash waterfall mechanism, the presumption is that the levies we are taking to be able to ensure say debt existing in the sector yetimi are taking it off now what becomes of the levies and then you
see the problem of the sector and I think I say all the government They are not ready to solve the problem. You see, the levies are taken in cities.
Exactly.
And anytime you mismanage the economy and the city depreciates, it means that you need a lot of cities to pay a dollar-rated debt because the debt is in dollars.
It's in dollars, okay.
What passes the energy sector recovery levy? What passes the energy debt recovery levy? Which components of these levies are supposed to be allocated to offset energy sector debt? But what is Kano? One first Kano and energy sector debt. What the Koya for? The moment of the Koya we see the need depreciating, which means you need to mobilize a lot of revenue to be able to pay the same dollar-rated debt on the Kano. So, for example, look at 2023 budget line. The government allocated about 27 billion, between 25 and 27 billion Ghana cedis to pay energy sector debt. But when you only 5 billion. Imagine, say, when you have 27 billion now, or cash and compensation pay energy sector debt now, when you what it means is that, say, this year, if the city depreciates, our buying will need more than 30 billion Ghana cedis to pay that debt. So it was said, because we are passing some of these acts to take the revenues or levies from people. It was said, Sikanano, and they allocate this cano to the appropriate entities and as appropriate IPPs and the power sector service providers. But I buy this cano, or they acquire the for. Or they are good or they are going for. And the more would you track for or they are the for no. Anytime I will see the debate depreciate, you need to mobilize a lot of revenue. And that is why to date, because these are dollar rated debts. And anytime your city depreciates, you need a lot of revenue. The problem no is because we are not ready to solve it. Now the other part is that people also think that it is the revenue mobilization that will solve the problem. It's not true.
And yes,
But the revenue mobilization cannot entirely solve a problem. It's efficient management of the revenue from mobilized. For example, Abraham make us a legacy debt. ECG continues to incur a lot of debt annually. Imagine seminar, they produce power. The generative power in a trauma ECG. That ECG at power now what trauma meno. Malusu 30% through technical and commercial losses. And this annually sum up to about $600 million, not Ghana cedi, dollars. Anytime you lose 30% of the power produced to you or sold to you, what about Mineka about $600 million and continues la Fibian ECG boss akano. So question we say bisa here want to say, oh mine, how do you solve this problem once and for all? How do you reduce technical and commercial losses? Yes, I think Kruma are buying Numa MDAs. Esu you see in Amkania, Omuntia, Afibiano, Omoboyeka almost $1.4 billion. Our music can Omuntia. On my, where do we start the conversation? That MDAs must begin. And that is why sometimes it may buy studio make us say, even in our budget, it was it categorically specified to the MDAs, Ministry of Health, entire ministry, for allocation of electricity near. 40 Bruce were using internet generated funds to pay. Ministry of Education, entire budget, the composite budget now, all various appropriation budgets now. Yes, the state administration, they state this, but categorically don't specify the amount of electricity each ministry must use. I was saying the two, Uti Proswa, can use internet generated funds to pay. Right? So it polices every MDA to appropriately use energy and conserve energy for the good people of Ghana. But because of the follow period natural, a pinum crab close to ACSEO. Because at the end of the day, I buy the betria. And this continues to incur $1.4 billion debt every year. So solve a problem, not problem in air compound because that's in air balloon. I enjoy it. And the problem in the energy sector, I think that if we can solve it, we need a holistic, a very comprehensive approach, bipartisan approach, civil society activism or involvement, think tank involvement, media involvement. Then we say, even in our gas contracts, right? Gas contract. How do we sign it? In the supply of optical agreement of gas, in the transportation of products. How do we sign this contract that benefits Ghana? Because to be frank with you, most of the gas contract we signed did not benefit us.
Okay.
Most of the power purchase agreements we signed did not benefit us because be a politician now was signed because of the BB Obenya or was signed to the disadvantage of Ghana. And near Minuka say Ghana has one of the expensive electricity tariffs in Africa. So if you have one of the expensive, now beside the Minister of Finance, Adrian said, the bat control in Kania.
Exactly.
You see, you are killing your industries. You are killing your industry in a very competitive world, and that is why importation continues to increase in Ghana because OBP said, open you sue electricity. And they are producing Ghana at expensive, no. It is far cheaper importing the products in the country. Right? And we are living in an environment where we tout ourselves that there's an after secretariat here. After secretariat, what does it do? That we want to champion inter-African trade. How does Ghana become very competitive with higher electricity tariffs in Africa? Osha Energy Sector Recovery Program report, the Energy Commission, for us to be very competitive, we must sell our electricity at an average of 18 cents per kilowatt hour. 10 cents per kilowatt hour. But now our electricity is sold around 15 to 19 cents per kilowatt hour. And someone says at Minister of Finance, they say that we should add VAT to it. We should add VAT to users. And we are looking at a maximum user. Most of the lifeline users are living in compound houses that use one meter. So you are taxing your people, some aspect of your people, households into poverty. Because why do you say, lifeline users, lifeline users do use individual meters, almost a compound house, and almost share 1 meter. Okay. And the moment I will be increasing VAT, is going to affect them. You are pushing more of them to poverty. One thing is also now even residential users also crying out almost use higher higher electricity, almost no old daily no almost started almost cost almost expenditure cost then they are pushing their employers to increase their salaries. Employers increasing salaries also means that cost of production is going high. Cost of production going high means that the items are going to be expensive. So what do? We need to import the things into the country. So I think that yes, the problem and about Sikana Ojen, because the more Ojis the more you are killing the industries. The problem is how do you manage
it?
You manage the revenue of realize, how you manage the revenue of mobilize, and the contract signing. How do you sign a contract that benefits Ghanaians and not benefit you, the politician? These are things we need to critically look at, and I think that as a minor, we need a discussion on it. Just that Parliament has failed us in terms of some of these things. They go there, you don't know what they discuss. They just go make argument, and the poor continue to suffer. Businesses are suffering. The media is suffering. Everyone is suffering in Ghana because of bad decisions of politicians in this country.
Interesting. So what it means is that currently, as we speak, there isn't any sort of much hope. Because just as you said, somewhere last year, I buying about $500 million. Now yet, what can it be more? This is an election year as well. And the gas suppliers, any a year, the IPPs are. One more year, the power generators, at all costs, one more ebeji or musika, because they do not even know the fate of Ghana in terms of a year election a day. Now, Akosia Opoku Ajeman is on Facebook, and she is asking that, good morning, Mr. Speaker. Please let your man explain what has happened to ESLA. How do you respond to this question?
What has happened to
ESLA?
Okay, so ESLA was passed in 2015 through Act 899. In 2017, ESLA was amended. After its amendment, we introduced the ESLA PLC, which is a special purpose vehicle, to maybe for a better word, an investment vehicle that mobilizes or uses the revenue of ESLA from ESLA to get some facilities to pay the energy sector debt. For example, in
2017,
in 2017-18, a buying at the Eslano, Ecobo Busia, or the offset energy sector debt. But in terms of allocation to the energy sector, it was quite few. Mostly was used in the petroleum downstream and the courtyard petroleum downstream. And now, because ESLA is underperforming, I think government has even restructured the ESLA bonds because I buy any as going to mean go to do I restructure the energy sector ESLA bonds? No, I restructure, and because of the government has restructured the ESLA bonds, now because revenue streams for ESLA no are limited in terms of getting people to buy ESLA bonds because own performer and our own performance so sikana ESLA wajin ESLA dimuno untimi ntua wa restructure nti wa restructure no obi bie ni wa obesan beto ESLA bonds no so now because ESLA is underperforming and because ESLA is underperforming are buying any opportunity say occupy sika e wo ESLA dimu e dia betua kabi so that place is closed. Government must find
and that level of collateralization, no, for how long?
I think ESLA was between 10 to 15 years, depending on the particular bond. and I think you can even read the state ownership report. The ownership report of 2020 was telling you that at that time, ESLA was underperforming because the bonds, most of the short-term instruments are ESLA. Because people were not ready to buy these bonds because of the risk nature of this. Apart from the risk nature of the Council and Ministry of Finance, say or the could and also the 2 for 2 ama ESLA no. So you can also read what you call the annual in ESLA report every year. The ESLA Section 6 of the ESLA Act. STT categorically said there was a buying a public called ESLA annual report, and this ESLA annual report no crowd by publishing a buying actually is kind of crowd original on finding in Amco and go to ESLA, even though or setting up ESLA no PLC no say or GSLA scan edia kutia short term instruments even and long term instruments, but it's kind of crowd fan so ESLA in its current nature is underperforming, and that is why even government who say underperforming or introducing in 2021. What you call the energy sector recovery levy of about 20 pesos per liter, but still it's not performing the function it's supposed to perform. Obi be beside ESLA once the no ESLA scan as a and this are buying pesca for 80 minutes as a kawe energy sector.
Kessben 92.9 Asidankwa.
So yentua wamko na yentua IPPs, even half of the debt, and I say a car ye de womonoa. What it means, and it's Dumso no abase say ebeko so awo the best option ebetimi anya no yes the ECG no ebema a load shedding timetable na afi obia no etimi ada ne ho so if I'm right.
Yeah, and I think that there's more problem ahead than the solution because even if you're able to pay WAPCO, wouldn't say last year somewhere in December Asogli threatened Asogli and so by out say buy the Kabi or threatening apart from Asogli, Nyabinoka say Ghana National Gas Company Limited is being run down because are buying Ed in a car, are buying Timinti. So they are also becoming a vulnerable entity.
Yes, I was actually going to ask that. Say, in the absence of WAMCO supplying us natural gas through the West African gas pipeline, what about Ghana gas? At the end, but I mean, what it means is that Ghana gas and so ain't mean farm wire.
To me, because also I am financially distressed in terms of profitability. I think if they are reporting about in 2023, Ghana gas is likely to be a company in financial distress, a company that is performing poorly or that is not performing up to profitability. They are in losses because in December, and so almost all workers' union about because of say buying into your more moment, ama almost no finances so by intent or by purpose, buying is collapsing. Ghana Gas, the state-owned company, buying is collapsing. Gridco, buying is collapsing. DRA, buying is collapsing. Most of the state-owned power sector service providers, no, and the private sector also no, it collapse, and that is why I think the private sector, because they are more independent, are now calling the shot and threatening government. Say one Pia, Ghana National Gas and a because what supply because on your company, be a VRE and a bit me akosua generating because of your company, be a Grico and a bit my transport because of your company. But yeah, IPPs no, again your company. Yeah, transporters need be no any your company and one Pia. You call it a shot, and that is the threat that is coming. And the serious problem ahead is that say a buying to me settle WAPCO. It also leads to other power sector service providers to also come forward. Say was some Jomsika.
As a some Jomsika, interesting.
Some Jomsika. Nti me ameno ka say no was say animu yana said the finance minister say Sikabi ba I think IMF and World Bank Sikabi about over $1 billion. It was say some allocations must be made to these IPVs. And yet, this year's projection is around 2.8. Group projection is around 2.8%. If we allow doom so to occur, it means that our group projection of 2.8, we are likely not to achieve it. And if we don't achieve it, it means that we are likely to move into recession. We move into recession, unemployment is going to go high, poverty is going to go high, and it's likely to affect them in the 2024 election. So, OBBA or now being officer winning election 2028. This is the best time to be very proactive. This is the best time to be very innovative. This is the best time to involve every stakeholder, right, in decision making, so that the decision become very binding. The decision become very participatory and inclusive. So, assembly about yen kasa na the solution number. Na yen so ni so na yen solve problem once and for all, because obi am pedum so the economy is shrunk economy by about 2%. We lost about $5 billion then, and we are not ready to lose additional $5 billion this year because of doom so. So the time has come for Ministry of Energy to be very proactive in thinking. Minister of Finance, very proactive in thinking, and it should not be work as usual, right? People must begin to think logically, critically, problem-solving thinking, and get us out of this mess once and for all.
Now, finally, Ben, before I let you go, in 2024, how much did government project, say, obetimi adhere the energy sector debt? Again, the experience within this week, you know, you find say a emergency situation, some sort of, and say a buying crano is supposed to make releases from an air cranoa. It may not be really say projections are what making no muyisika at the free because it be a revenue mobilization. Ensheda encore nenimsa for the year 2024. I think that January nankasano efrase ma implementation of the budget. Revenue allocations are buying eba beji na efrase VAT ni adie na. Now, how will we be able to deal with this situation vis-a-vis just opposing it to projection abaya for the year entirely?
So for example, if you take the 2024 budget, still government projected within the range of 27 to 29 billion to offset this debt. But the problem is that sometimes it's not about Sebia buying business connectia. It's about trust and being honest with the suppliers of these particular services or these particular products. Because consistently, buying Eshebwa won't mean so. Right? Because I quite remember say when WAPCO threatened, I buy Utio Mokakra, and Okachom so schedule in the coming months in this country. But I buy antimaniso. So because of say I buy Ashebwa won't mean so there's a trust issue between the sector service providers and government. And because of that trust issue, say it's only ne kwa pam. And as a one any koshe any MOU biana or no feel say very risky to take anything from government because government has not been able to
fulfill the promises.
Fulfill the promises are wakani inano. Inti say inti na WAPCO for example, if you say misikana ma
gas and
main supply. Nisikana ma men supply. And Nisikana ma on supply. So Emma ye shoto almost about 500 megawatts. And Manika Kacho said even in December, we're producing less energy than our peak demand. So if they continue to hold the supply of this gas, what it means is that it is rather going to increase from the shortfall of about 500 megawatts to about 1,000 megawatts. And when we short about 1,000 megawatts, what it means is that at the first time in our history, even our dependable or the available capacity crowd is less than our peak demand. And when that happens, no, we are in a serious trouble. And I don't think government Nasi Amaya Kosa this is serious trouble because it's going to affect them hugely. So they need to solve it once and for all.
Very well. Mame, and now I say, and okay, Ben, I'm grateful for your time. Now, you best say the incomobium. Why?